All right, welcome. My name is Jeff, the Big Hairy Dog, and we are going to go ahead and get started. It's 2 minutes after, so this is a version 9 physical inventory webinar. So we're going to talk about version 9 physical inventory a bit. Let's see if I can get my ducks in a row here. There are basically 4 steps in any physical. So outside of Retail Pro, before we even go in and dive into this, I just want to get this clear. I used to be in retail. I was a store manager and an ops manager. I ran inventories for, fairly small, medium retail stores, 22,000 square foot stores. And so there's a basic process that takes place. Step 1 is to start the physical, to capture the book value. Step 2 is to count the stuff. So freeze the physical value. Step 3 is to compare the two numbers. Step 4 is to accept the changes, right? So start, count, look at your differences and make corrections as needed. And then 4, accept the update the inventory, right? That's the process. It's been like that forever. I've done it by hand when I used to work as a hardware guy at Sears back in the days, and we had one guy calling, one guy counting. It doesn't matter if you're capturing on paper or you're capturing with a scanner. It doesn't really matter, right? It's the same process basically. Any way you want to look at that. So I have someone here that I'm looking for some notes that I wanted to bring up, and it took me longer than I thought to find those. So I usually like to have a little outline. I like to have it already up and running, so I'm going to bring this up, make the font a little bigger so we can all see it maybe a little better. So real quick, there's the 4 steps: start, count, discrepancies, and update. Those are the 4 basic steps of physical inventory. They don't change, doesn't matter what software you're using. It's the same. It's always the same. Or at least it should be. So again, if you have any questions at all as you go here, I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat window and make sure that I'm following along as needed to make sure that I can answer any questions that pop up, or just chat with me and say, hey, unmute me or raise your hand. There's a little hand raiser thing too. You can do that, and I can absolutely unmute you. I don't know how everybody feels about that, but I always welcome people joining in. If you don't understand it and you have to ask a question, more than likely the other people have the same concern. So up front, I'm just going to state we're not going to go into it, but prep is vitally important here with a physical inventory. Make sure your store is cleaned up, that everything's tagged, that there are no dump boxes. Create a map, assign fixtures, zone numbers. A zone is an area that you're counting. It's not really necessarily filterable per se in the data. It's more a physical location that has a logical start and stop place that will not confuse the people that are counting. A zone should be a decent amount of work, but not too big. So 30 minutes worth of counting would be ideal, I think, as just a rule of thumb. There are exceptions to that. If you've got a fixture someplace that's all by itself, that's in a weird spot, that doesn't fit into, and it's only a few items on display, maybe it's a zone by itself just because it has to be, right? Anyway, label the zones prior to counting, take some post-it notes, put your zone designations, whether they be numbers, letters, or alphanumeric, whatever. I usually recommend doing something that like a letter for the department, like M for men's, and then a number or something like that, right? And then the numbers they should make sense. If you're on the floor and 1 is here, we would expect 2 to be next. Doesn't have to be that way, but make it easy on yourself, right? So the prep is vitally important. If you're not ready to do a physical, physicals are very expensive. It's a huge investment in time and payroll in resources, so be careful with that. All right, that being said, let's dive into physical inventory, right? So here in this is a copy of Retail Pro, not the most current, by the way, but physical inventory hasn't changed again in a long time. So I'm going to go into inventory. I am going to go over to the sidebar menu, and I have physical inventory in my menu. If it's not in there, of course, you can use the menu designer, and you can move things into the menu by double clicking them and pushing them over to the right, they add to the menu, right? Anyway, so physical inventory is here. Now I've got stores and zones is grayed out. I'm going to back out of here and we'll just have that quick conversation. It's under options, system preferences. Under local preferences, you have a merchandise section, and merchandise section has physical inventory. We'll see if they can leave us alone for a bit. And in here we've got use zones. So I'm going to strongly recommend everybody use zones. Again, in 22,000 square foot store, you can't count the whole thing in one shot. And if you have a count and you upload it, it's like taking a bucket of water and pouring it into a pool. You're not getting your count back. So if you want to control the count, use zones. Turn on zones right here. Make sure you're using zones. Make sure that if you're initializing your scanners, that you're using a field, UPC, item number. Item number is old, UPC is probably not 100%. So for me, it's only ALU is the only option, right? Most people don't initialize the scanners. Most people use scanners, but they use them in what I call basic mode or dumb mode, which I'll explain in a bit. And the rest of these settings are not bad. You can use a filter or not. I usually do not strip leading zeros because ALU is alphanumeric and we need them. Trimming spaces is good. And then this setting down here, which we'll get to later on more, this update remote station, that has to do with remote stores. So if you're a main or versus a remote, who has the ability to do the update? And that is worded terribly bad. So the main should never have this checked. Never have this checked at the main. If the remotes are going to not have the ability, they check it off and that forces them to send it to the main. But we'll come back to that when we get to that part of the discussion. So let's go back in here and let's do step one, right? So we go into physical inventory and I go to physical and I go to stores. Now, because I don't have anything started, which you can see in the background, nothing in the background, it knows I want to start one. So it pops open and says, suggest the first location be started, which for us is fine. It doesn't matter which location we start here. Now I can't click create yet because I have to name it. So a good name might be, May 2020, or I might want to put the store designation in there, store one, like whatever 001, or I've got my store initials as Big Hairy. I'm not sure what the B stands for. Big Hairy Bikes, I think. I was playing around with it. All right, so if I give it a name and I select a location, I can click create and it pops up with my filter because I had my filter turned on in preferences. So I could, if I wanted to, filter for only one vendor, one department. I could do a small physical. The clear all is gray, so I'm clean. So I'm going to click OK and let the whole thing just fire up. So that gives me step one. Step one is done. So my steps, they do not repeat, right? So once I start this and I create that, then we move on to step two. And if I redo step one, I will wipe out my counts, right? So we do not need to redo that ever. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Now, step one's done. I don't really need to go any deeper into step one, but I'm going to. I'm going to go to PI inventory, and we're just going to take a quick look at it. Is there anything in here we can see? I see some stuff that I wanted to show you. All right, there we go. So the on-hand quantity here, which could be bigger. I'm going to agree that somebody out there is thinking, oh my gosh, we can barely see that. And I'm not going to argue with you. So I'm just going to bump my font up real quick so we can see what the heck we're doing a little bit. All right, so the on-hand quantity here is 55. It copied in the start process, it copies the on-hand quantity over to the start quantity. And of course, we haven't counted anything yet, so we're short everything, right? And it's really convenient that we had a negative quantity right beneath it. Obviously, if we have a negative, then a negative is going to copy that over, and you can't count a negative anyway. So you're going to have an overage, which is going to pop up and go in there, right? So now if we don't count this, it's then in the update, step 4, it's going to apply the discrepancy to the current on hand, right? Thus wiping out that 55 pieces, right? So that's the process. Either we count it or it goes, I think we need to just quit that whole thing, right? Yeah, we need to stop that. The techs are all chatting about their lunch there. Okay, so step 1 done. Let's back out of here and let's go to step 2. So physical inventory, now zones was grayed out before. Now zones is not grayed out because we've got a physical we've started, right? Now I could have started more than one store. And if I have multiple stores, then I'm gonna have to be careful in my upload about where I upload the data. But right now we only got one store. So I'm gonna go to zones. There's no zones. I'm gonna click new, make a zone. So I'm gonna say it's this store and I'm gonna give it a name. Now the name is nice and big, so we could say if this was men's, for instance, we could say it's men's. We could say if we wanted to do BHB space men's space 100, right? The version 8 field was small. This one's quite big. I think it's 20 characters. It's big enough to pretty much do what you need to do with it. It's very, very friendly now. So we're going to click create, and it creates a zone. And I could make more zones, but I am going to upload some data. Now, if we had a scanner, we would have set the scanner up, and I'm going to highly recommend, if you have scanners, that you get them out and you charge them and you test them prior to the day of inventory. I don't know how more obvious that should be, but it definitely needs to be tested ahead of time. And if you're renting them, same thing. We will connect with you and we'll set them up in the days preceding your physical inventory. So if you've got your own, you want to do the same thing, and you want to make sure you have at least one normal tech day, not after hours or weekend, where you can call and get some assistance if they're not working correctly, right? They're just Tinker Toys. The scanners always end up working. Sometimes we have to slap it around and get it going if we haven't used it in a year. Okay, fair enough, right? So, so this zone is out here, and I want to add some stuff to it. Now, I don't have a scanner. This is a webinar. I can't physically show you a scanner. But so what I did is I created out here on my desktop. Let's get the reports junk out of our way. Out here on my desktop someplace, I created a file, I think, if I can find it here. I just saved it a minute ago. Okay, so there's zone 2, text, which we might play with, but okay, zone.text. So I just created this here, and it's just some numbers, some SKUs in my inventory. And when a scanner scans, it roughly does the same thing. It grabs a barcode and starts counting how many it's got, right? And then it uploads a file that doesn't look too actually much dissimilar than this here. So we're going to mimic that scan, and we're going to come down here and type in like a number, and we're going to put a comma and put a 1. And I'm hoping I don't have anything in my inventory like that, and I probably should go look real quick, but I'd like to upload something that is an error. So when we operate a scanner in what we would kind of call dumb mode, where we don't have a database, we're not validating the scans as we go, is what I'm trying to say. Then we're going to get scanning errors. We're going to scan a UPC code or something that we weren't intending to scan, and that's going to be a problem. So let's just go make sure that I'm not barking up the wrong tree here, and let's just see what happens if I go look for that item and tell me of course I have one. Nice. Okay, we're going to change that one. We're going to make that one something else. We're going to cheat. Yeah, all right, so all right, that'll work. Okay, so now I don't have one of those items, so that one will be a scan error, right? That's basically the deal. So cancel my quick view filter here, and we'll go back to physical inventory. So now another point that I should probably make as I test this is that in inventory, I could certainly use a filter. And once I filtered for something, let's say that this is some fine jewelry, which it's not. It's a poplin polo shirt. But if I was filtering for a given section of merchandise and I wanted to, I could bring that together on the screen. I could then click print. I could then use a doc design like this kind of thing here, this count sheet. I could say, show me all listed records. I could send that out to this. I'm just going to go ahead and take a small section here, something like this, right? And I could have a place where I could add the count in if I wanted to. That's weird. We've got this field's populating incorrectly, but the point is I could export this out to Excel, and in Excel I could count this stuff. I could actually put counts into Excel, and then I would have in one column a count, and another column the item number or the ALU, and with that I could save that as a CSV file, and I could upload it just like I'm about to do to mimic a scanner, right? So I'm just going to say there are some options out there if we need to upload a count, and there is a function under system preferences, under local, under merchandise, under physical inventory, PI tool, import maps, right? So out in the import map area, see right here, we've got ALU. I called it ALU 6 because it's a 6-digit ALU starting on character 1, ending on 6 for a length of 6, skipping the comma, starting on 8 and ending on 12 for a length of 5 for my count. I don't have any of this stuff, don't care. And I checked off ALU over here as the import value that's coming in, so it knows where to look for that. So if you look at my where is my little zone thing again here? Seem to have lost it. There it is. And so you see right there, you know, from the left here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? We skipped number 7, and then our count is starting on 8, but it may go 1, but it may go more than 1, right? It could go up to 5 characters, right? If I want to make it that big. Save. All right, so now we'll try this out. And let's go ahead and copy this and make a paste, make a number copy here, and we'll make another copy. So we can play around a little bit in there, right? All right, so if I go out now to physical inventory, so we're going to go to inventory, we're going to go to physical inventory, we're going to go to zones. So logically here, we start the inventory, step 1's done. We have scanners, we hand the scanners to people. The map's already been made. We have a map, a physical map written. We tell a given person to, you know, on the map to go over to section whatever 100. So we've got, and this does not have to be to scale, guys. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a rounder, that's a 4-way. You know what I'm saying? This is a wall section. And sometimes on the wall, I've had to divide peg hooks and put a piece of tape down there to say that's one section and this is another, right? And then we put little numbers on these and we put little section tags in the upper left corner, right? We put them wherever is the most convenient. We put a section tag on there saying what section this is. And then as they count these, they should initial that or put another blue post-it note next to it. I don't care. They need to designate that this one's been counted so nobody else recounts it, right? So they go take a scanner, they scan that section there, they walk back up to you and say, I've got section 100 in the men's ready to go. And so then I click new, I create my zone, I then go into the zone. Once it's saved, like we did a minute ago, we go scanned, we say we want to add counts. Now at this point, we would normally go to portable data reader, the first tab right here. I don't have a portable data reader. I can't show you one here very well. So I'm going to go to import. I am going to open up the desktop, change my data type from here, file type from datas to text, right? So I can find the file that I just created. And so there's copy 2. There's the one I just created, right? There it is right there. We're going to open that. And then we're going to say, using this map here, ALU 6, import those records, right? Okay, there was one item that could not be found in the inventory. Okay, we front loaded that, right? That's the error that I typed in, and I went and edited the item to make sure we did not have one of those so that we would get a scan error, right? So I'm going to click OK and click close. And there are the items that came in. There's the one that had the big quantity, right? So it brought all my items in, beep, just fine, uploaded those things, wonderful. I'm gonna back up one notch. So here I am looking at the bird's eye view of my zone, and I can see that I have some bad scans and some good scans, right? So over here, there's the scanned items. We just looked at those. And down here are the errors, right? So if we scanned a manufacturer UPC code that we had never bothered to put into Retail Pro and Retail Pro does not know about it, we're going to get a scan error, right? That's what's going to happen. So we go to errors. And what is it doing here? Like, what the heck's going on there? Let's make this bigger because I mean, I can see it, but just barely. I'm kind of old, I guess, maybe by some people's standards. But we'll bump this up to make it a little bit easier to see. All right, like so. Why isn't there a description here? Like, there's nothing here, is it? Oh, wait a second. That's the bad item. That's the item that it doesn't recognize. So all it knows is the import ID and the number of pieces counted. That's all it knows, right? That's the whole purpose of this screen. So what are these other items doing here? Well, the other items are in fact the items that are bracketing that item, right? So if we go back and look at our zone, and right here, let's say open this file, select a file. It renames the thing. So so you see here the items before and after, right? So 643 and 645, right? Oh, that's UPC code. Here we go. So actually, it's one and two. That's weird. I'm not sure why it's got 1 and 2 on there. I thought it would have been. It must have reorganized those once I upload. Oh no, that's not the right item. That's why. If I looked at the right item, that's a stupid human trick, right? Basically, if I'm looking at the wrong item, then I'm going to get the wrong data. So yes, 641 and 642 are the two items that are around the bad scan. If you follow what I'm saying. So what this screen is attempting to do, it's attempting to give you a nice. Wrong one. Let's go back to here. Okay, it's attempting to show you what was scanned around that item, right? That's what it's trying to do. So if we were then to, and then we could do a couple of things here. We could print this. I could say print this using the VHD zone report, right? And I could say preview. Now here, you see the bad scans on top and the good scans beneath, right? That's what this print job is doing. And some people like that a lot, and they say it's really handy to see the bad scans here and see the good scans down here and know the order of scanning, and the item numbers are over here on the right. They should be anyway. Yeah, there they are right there. So here you can see the order of the items, and you can see up here where this one inserts, right? Sometimes that helps, but if this is also like, this is a big zone and there's 30 pages, I've also had people tell me that, hey dude, what I usually do is just select all, right click, export to Notepad. That writes it down well enough for me. I can print this, it's short, it's sweet, and I'm not gonna argue with them. It is short and sweet and easy to do, and you can save it fast. So whichever method works for you, I don't care. You need to document what this is, because when we resolve this, it is going to erase this out. It's going to go away. And then we're going to have to re-enter it. Okay? So hypothetically, we documented this and we went back to the zone. The person who just scanned it would go back. They would be most familiar with it. They would take a look for the item. They would find the bad barcode. Now, one of two things is going to happen, right? Either there is a good barcode that they can say, hey, that should be this, or there is no good barcode at all. And that's the only barcode, and that item has no barcode and needs to be retagged. That's the only options that we are going to get here. So in option one, then we're going to fix this right now, be done with it. Option two, we're going to resolve it, and we're going to physically move the item out of the zone into a trouble area that we are maintaining as a separate zone in our physical inventory process. So items that cannot be counted right now leave the zone and they go to the trouble area. And somebody else retags those and will scan that zone last. Does that make sense? We're not stopping the whole process for one bad item. Okay, so we come back. The first thing we do is on the top, it says resolve here. We click resolve. It says, okay, you're about to move these things out and they're gone. That's it. They're gone. We back out of here. We have no errors. Now, if in option number one, we know what that item should have been, we got a couple options there. We could go into scanned, right? I mean, it could have been that it was 641. It was actually a duplicate. We had two with another one of those, and we just scanned the wrong barcode on that one piece. So I could just say, look, I had 6 of those, right? I mean, I could just change one, right? That'd be easy to do. Let's say it was not the case, though. Let's say I'm going to roll a dice here. See what have I got here. Let's say that there's this number here with a 5, right? So 987655, right? Okay, so I could, if I find a different item, I could go into add counts, and I could say 987655, right? That's an item there, and that I'm counting at quantity 1. Okay, item not found. You get where I'm going though, right? I guess I'll put this back to a 4. I could count any item I want in there and add it to the count. Just click on add counts, go to manual, key in your corrected barcode, right? Boom, it adds to the count. So I just changed this one up by 1, right? So either I add it in here manually, done, either by editing the quantity or adding a new SKU, or the item physically moves out of the zone. Now, after I resolve it, my count matches the physical items. Either way, I'm reconciling this right now, right? That's the deal. Then once it's reconciled, once it's all pretty and there are no errors, in the scan section, what I would recommend is that you print the BHD zone report, which you should have or you can easily get from any of my texts. And this document here has a place on the top for someone to initial it. So basically with this document, I would go out and double count. I don't think we can afford to do 100% double counting. Maybe you can in some select areas for the right kind of merchandise, right? But if we don't sample, if we don't test, we're not going to know if somebody's making mistakes. Some people can't scan well. They just can't do it. So there's plenty of stuff to do. We got to retag stuff. We got to take care of the trouble area. We got to reface merchandise after we scan it. We got plenty of things to do, right? You don't have to be the guy shooting the items. So if we don't sample this, we're not going to know what mistakes we made. And I guarantee you're making mistakes. It's not a question if you're making mistakes. The question is, are you catching your mistakes? Everybody makes mistakes in a physical inventory. I can tell you that from personal experience. Not so good personal experience. But there you go, right? So do you want to save this? No, I don't. So I would recommend that you print that out, you go out, you have somebody sample it. If they find additional mistakes, right, and they come back and say, oh yeah, this one here should have been 9 and this one here should have been 7, that we can fix those, right? And once we fix those, then, and we believe it's counted as accurate as possible, then we would merge the zone, right? So we clicked over here on the sidebar menu, we click that merge zone button right there and say yes, and it merges the zone into the master count, right? So we're gonna do one a little faster this time. We're gonna walk through one at a more normal rate, right? So we click new, we say what store it is, we put in the section we're counting, and I probably should follow the same plan, right? You wanna have a good naming convention. Create the zone, make sure you're highlighted on the new zone, go to scanned, add counts, hit your portable scanner, hit send the data, or in my case, go to import, find the file that we're about to import. Yeah, all right, copy. We'll just take copy. We'll do them in order, right? And we'll say import file. Of course, we get an error. We close that. We immediately go to errors. We look at the error. We maybe export this out and give this to, so select all, right click, select all, right click, export. to Notepad, print that out, hand that to my person who scanned and said, go find this barcode, right? They come back and they say, there's no tag on that. I say, okay, pick the item up, put it in the trouble area, and I say resolve, wiping these out. And then at that point I go, okay, and come back here and print out in the scan section all of the stuff, and I set that aside because I'm not going to have the guy that just scanned this section do this particular one. If they scanned it just now and they made a mistake in counting, they're going to make the same mistake when they verify it, right? So we don't correct our own sections, right? So then in a minute somebody else is free and they don't have anything to do, and I say, hey, boom, here's a piece of paper, go over to that zone right there and double check that zone, it's right there, right? So they come back, they say it was counted good, I say sweet, and I say, all right, I'm going to highlight that one and merge that one, and as I merge them they check off, right? So I can see at any given moment if I have a bunch of zones in here, which ones have been double checked and which ones haven't, right? Because they got the little check on them. So we'll just make another one in there real quick so you can see what I'm saying. So you can see really quick which ones have been double checked, right, and which ones haven't. Now you can merge them all at once. People like to say mark the store, merge the whole list all at once. I prefer to do it zone by zone. I like to use the little check marks to my advantage, right? So that is step 2, right? Basically we continue with step 2 until we have counted everything on the map, right? We've gone through every location. We've had maybe put a little check box on each one as we go, right? To make sure we've checked them all off. We have some kind of double check system to make sure we don't miss a zone. That's the point of a map, right? We then make sure we've uploaded every one of them. We got a nice checklist here on the screen. We can go into scanned. We can add counts. And we can say import. And I think it's just copy. I don't know how it's. We're going to say grab the damn file, right? Text, scroll to the bottom here, we got one left, open, highlight the right map, import, we got an error, okay. We go to back out one notch, we go to errors, there it is. In this case, we believe that they miscounted one of these, so it's a 987642, so we resolve that. We go back over to our scanned section, we find the one that we're looking for, and we say, oh yes, there should be 6 of those, not 5, right? And obviously, if you see like something like this, like here, I'm picking on this big guy, because if I saw a count of 987645, right? If I saw a count like that that looked a lot like a barcode, you know what I'm saying? I might think that their scanner was in the wrong mode, and then they may have manually keyed that in over the top of a quantity, right? Don't be afraid to look for obvious clues. That's a ridiculous number, right? We're just going to change that to something more reasonable. All right, then we back out of there. We say, okay, this one's not merged yet, and I have not double checked it, so I would print my double check form, give that to somebody. They would go check at whatever degree. They check 5 items on it, random items, and they're all perfect. You know, we got to sample it. That doesn't mean we have the time to double check 100%. On the other hand, if this is a zone that is like kayaks, and there's only 22 kayaks in the store, and they're $2,000 each, I'm checking them all, pretty much, you know. So we highlight the item that we just checked. They say it looks good. We're going to go ahead and say merge zone. At that point, we've scanned the whole store. All zones are accounted for. They're all merged into the master count. Step 2 is done, right? So if we take a quick peek at our steps here, you know, we go to zones, we create a new zone, right? We add the counts. We dump the count sheet out. We can use a count sheet for manual inputs. We looked at that. If there are errors, we locate and resolve those. We clear the scanner. Now, some scanners require clearing and some don't. It depends on the kind of scanner you're using. But this is a very important point. If I scan a section on, say, a PT or a Janum that does require clearing, and I don't clear it, then I go scan a second section and I upload that second section. I just uploaded the first section twice. Does that make sense to everybody? Just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. It's kind of important. So if you scan a section and you forget to clear your scanner and you're on a type of scanner that requires that, by the way, Foundry Logic does not require that. So if you're on a kind of a scanner like a Janum or a PT that does require that you clear the zone between scans, and you just uploaded the first zone twice, then your choices are delete that zone and rescan the second zone, or just delete the first zone because it's scanned in the second one, right? There are options there. And if you need to, call us, we can help you with that. But clearing the scanner before it goes out, and on that point, I'm going to say that if you have like a table, an upload table, let's say, and you're standing there uploading stuff, right? So here's my little table. Don't laugh at my drawings, okay? I draw because visually communicating, I think, is more effective sometimes. So we're back here. We're doing our little uploads, right? And we got our little hands here. And there's, say, a couple of people in line, right, with scanners. The first guy hands his scanner to me, right? And I take over and I do the upload. The second guy does not set the scanner on the table. I would only have one scanner on the table at a time. They hold that scanner, right? I want to know which one I've uploaded. The scanners look exactly the same. How are you going to know which one you uploaded if you set it down, right? Avoid stupid mistakes, right? So, and also if the zones are too small, you get a line. You shouldn't have a line at the upload station. That means people are standing around idle. The zones need to be big enough to where they're occupied for 30, 40 minutes, but not so big that we're scanning half the store, because if there's a mistake and I can't upload it and the scanner jams up or whatever, like I'm not going to want to rescan half the store again, right? So, all right, so we're finished with step 2. We back out of here, right? And we're going to go on to step 3, right? So we reset our scan, we print the good scans out, we double check them, we merge the zone. That's step 2. Now, this line right here is very important. This line in my notes is not just an arbitrary line. Essentially, when we do step 1, we freeze the book value or accounting value or software value, however you want to say that, right? You're freezing the book value, essentially. When you do step 2, you're actually counting the physical goods and you're freezing the physical value, right? Once those are captured, you can open your store. So at that point, it's a very important point for me. That's why I put a little line in there. So for instance, if I finish step 2, it's now 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going on to step 3. I'm going to go home and get some sleep, come in and do it fresh, because it don't matter. I can open the store in the morning. It will not affect my count. That's a very important point, right? So discrepancies and updating can be done with the store open. Now, how does that work? Okay, so let's say hypothetically we start and we got count of 10, so we get 10, and we got no count, and so we're short 10. So we count 8. Okay, everybody's with me, right? So that means our shortage went to 2, right? So the formula is this right here. The new quantity, the ending quantity that I get after update, is going to be the current quantity plus the difference. So that would be my current quantity 10 plus -2. Hey, that 10 plus -2 equals 8, doesn't it? So I'm not, when I count, I'm not actually looking for this. I'm looking for this. Does that make sense? So if I sold 5, then the on hand would no longer be 10. It would be 5, correct? And if I had 8 and sold 5, I would have 3. And if I have 5 and I add to that -2, I have 3. Does everybody get what's going on there? We do not have to be closed for steps 3 and 4. As long as our count was good, like we started it, that freezes everything in the count sheet. And then we counted everything. We froze everything that was available to be counted. We counted. So we got everything. There's nothing left to count. Boom, we can open the store, right? So if let's say and I have clients that do this, and there's a risk there. Let's say that they don't close the store and they're counting. So same scenario, let's assume that we started with 10 and there is in fact 8, but we can't count 8 because we sold 1. then we can only count 7, which results in a difference or a variance of 3, -3. But our on hand has already changed because we sold 1. So when we update, we add the current on hand to the 3, we get 6, not 7. Because it's double dipping, right? The physical inventory is taking that 1 out, but it already got taken out by the receipt. So you see, you gotta count everything in the store. When you hit that start button, when you do step 1, you are now responsible for counting everything as it is in the store. Now there's ways around that, right? If we're doing a count and we're open and we count the stock room and then we close a little early and start counting the floor, we could then run a sales report, export that out, and import that as a count, couldn't we? Because everything that got sold today, I hit start this morning, started counting the stock room. Everything that got sold on the floor was there and should be counted. So I could just run a sales report, export that out to like a Notepad, write a text file, import that as my count to say, here's what sold, and boom, I'm good, right? Or I could count the sales floor first, open a little late, and then hit the stock room. And as long as it's been counted, it can be sold, right? Nobody's shopping the stock room. I don't care what the strategy is, but you got to deal with that whole being open or being closed thing. And how do I account for what I sold? And the worst scenario is people actually shopping the floor while you're counting it, and you not knowing what got sold prior to being counted versus before it got counted, right? That's the worst scenario. You want to avoid that. All right, so step 3, right? Step 3 would be discrepancies, right? So in step 3, what we do is we go back into physical inventory, stores, and there is a button for discrepancies. So we click discrepancies and it shows us everything that is a discrepancy. Of course, we only counted like what, 18 items pretty much, and we didn't count those right. So really pretty much for us, everything is a discrepancy right now. In real life, hopefully, the discrepancies are the small share. The lion's share was counted correctly, right? So in here, we would then go print our discrepancies, and there's different ways to print it. There's all view. There's items by zone. No, that's weird. Okay, department, right? There's a vendor one. I think the most popular probably is by department, although if you're like a ladies dress shop, by vendor is going to be better for you. But let's just take a look at what this does. So this here, by department, shows me items that are in discrepancy, right? The starting quantity, the scan quantity, the difference, and gives me a subtotal by my department. So now I could break this up and say, look, little Susie, you're going to take accessories, and little Johnny, you're going to take men's or whatever, right? And I could have them each go check a section. And now they're looking everywhere, right? The zones are gone now. So this is the whole store. If I counted an item on the floor and I counted an item in the stock room and both zones got merged, then there's a master count on that is actually coming from both zones. But again, it got summed up. And so they're now going to have to find this item everywhere where it exists, right? So there's 2 levels of double checking here. The first level is each zone. With horse blinders on, we count each zone, and we verify that we counted it correctly. Now, in a perfect world, if we count every zone correctly, we should have an accurate count, and there should be no more mistakes. But we also find mistakes here too, right? If we get into discrepancies and we go out and we check them, we find that it was not counted right, then we're going to come back and make corrections, right? So we work through this. The item numbers on the left, the counts are here. We write notes on here. We circle things. We do whatever we have to do to make this clear and concise, right? And then we come back and we hand this to the person running the physical inventory. Then they make the corrections, right? That's the deal. So if we wanted to correct this item here, for instance, we want to add this to the count. And let's say we had other items that we wanted to take away, right? What we would do is we would go back into to physical inventory zones. So let's back up a little further. Let's go into physical inventory zones, and we make a new zone, right? And we call this corrections. If I can type today. And I still don't see any questions, and I don't see any hands. So I'm hoping you guys are still awake. And then we click create, and then we highlight our new zone. We go into scan, and we say add counts. And then here, what they did in this version, which is really quite nice, is that they gave us the ability. I'm going to take 2 away from this one. See, I can count a negative quantity. And it's really nice if you have your quantity over here. I'm just going to say that actually I'd want my UPC in there too. Sometimes you got to massage these physical inventory screens to make them right. I found that a lot. So if I'm using my numbers, I want to visually see my number, and I want to visually see the red -2 there, right? And if I'm then going to count that as that item there, right? So here I made a mistake. We miscounted a couple of items. I took out the bad SKU and put in the good SKU, right? So you can just sit here, key the number in, and key the modifier you want to modify that count by. You don't have to go find every single item and edit their quantity directly, which was very handy in the old versions, but very time consuming. It felt good, but it was not efficient. This is actually more efficient. Be able to just say this item gets corrected this way, this item gets corrected that way, and this leaves a brilliant and beautiful audit trail, right? So that if we make a mistake here, we can see the original count, we can see everything, right? So I'm going to click close, and I'm going to merge that zone back out. And then when I merge this zone by clicking merge zone over here, it's going to then take 2 off the one and add the other one in, right? So so that's pretty much step 3, right? We evaluate all the mistakes we made, and we make corrections. We add in counts where needed to, and take out counts where we want them to be out. Now, real quick, I want to pause, and I want to go look at a trick report that we have. It's not really a trick report, but it's a function that they used to have in version 8 that not many people are aware of, but we couldn't do it in the screens in version 8, but we did it in reports. So we added it to our custom reports. So if you have the Big Hairy Dog custom reports, then you're going to have a BHD PI zone report. And there's no filter criteria. This thing is just a query that runs very quickly. So I'm going to click run, and I'm going to say OK. And yes, fine, good. And it just does that right there. It just spits out everything. So what you're seeing here is every item in inventory. So what I'm going to do next is say, okay, find for me that one that we've counted like 4 times, right? So here you see that in store 0, right? So in store 0 in BHB amends 1001, 1000, 1002, and probably, of course, on the next page, if we can go to the next page, that is. It was also counted in the correction zone. So you see the ALU and the zone, you can see exactly how many were counted in this report for that item. So this thing works backwards from the item, right, back to the zones and shows you where everything was counted. So if we've got a situation where, there's an overage, like there's 3 jackets and the count says there's 63 counted, we're over by 60, but we can't figure out where the other 60 were counted, and we've got a couple of hundred zones. That means in another zone somewhere we made a mistake. The question is, what should have been counted for 60 pieces, right? This tells you the zone number, right? You can now backtrack and find that zone number. Then you could go look in there and find that SKU and take a look at the count and look at the order of items as you scan them and say, what did I miss? That, by the way, that scenario actually happened with the jacket in Alaska. And it turned out that the 60 jackets were counted in the jewelry counter, which begs the question, which is more expensive, the jewelry item or the jacket? I'm not sure in Alaska, but you get where I'm going, right? So this is a very handy trick to have, this BHD zone, PI zone report. It'll just spew out everything and show every zone, every item was counted, and then just do a quick search and find out for any given item what you're looking for, right? All right, so So we did steps 1, we did steps 2, we did steps 3, right? So let's get back in here where that's not what we're looking for, right? That's not what we're looking for. And that's not what we're looking for. Did we close our notes? That's embarrassing, isn't it? Oh no, it's in the different window. I gotcha. So was it down here? All right, well, let's just go ahead and make this a little bigger. So font. Okay. So storage discrepancy, print and fix as needed. That's it. That's a step 3, right? So that brings us down to step 4, update, right? So the update process is pretty simple in this version. I'm going to say I'm really pleased with how nice and clean it is. So in our inventory, we go to physical inventory, stores, right? And then it says update PI right here. We click open the update PI, we check off the location we want, and we pick our reason code, whether that PI, or physical. You want to have a nice consistent reason code, right? One that you use every year for reporting purposes, right? Okay, so it's already on all inventory. This version, unlike past versions, doesn't have a problem defaulting correctly. So let's make sure we understand that. If for some reason, we got 2 of these open now, nice. Let's say we started with 2, right? Our starting quantity was 2. Can I type in there? Why can't I type in there? That's kind of weird. Oh, that's why. Got it. Okay, so we started with 2. We counted nothing, so we're short 2, right? And our current quantity on hand is 2, right? That's the way those fields work. So now, if we update only items with a quantity, that item doesn't have a quantity, does it? So that 2 passes on to the next physical, and we're still short those 2 items when we count it next year, right? So if we didn't count it, it's because we don't have any, right? So we have to update all items. Now, again, if your preferences are set correct, and everybody's preferences get set correct on this one, it defaults that way, and I make sure it's set that way, and all my trainers do the same thing. So it should always be set to all inventory, unless you're doing a really odd little one-off, like I'm counting 3 unrelated items, and I only want to affect those 3 items. The way to do that is to affect only things I counted, right? But that's a weird physical. I'm just going to say that rarely happens. So if I filter for men's, if I'm doing a cycle count, right, and I'm filtering for men's or something, then I would filter for the department, but I would update all inventory items. Again, if I didn't count it, it's because I don't have it, right? So a cycle count or a full physical would always have all items. And then we would just click update. Now, before I click update, I want to talk about the remote store thing again real fast. So if I come back in here and I go to options, system preferences. So if at the remote store, let's say I didn't trust them, that never happens. And I wanted to see the physical and be sure they didn't screw it up before they accepted it. I could at the store check this off here. Now this says update inventory counts on remote station. That sounds like update is okay at the remote store. That's not what it says. What it really says is I relinquish my ability to update my own physical. That's what that says. When I check that off, I give that right away to a remote location. In this case, the polling location would be the main, right? So I'm going to leave that checked off for a second. We're going to go back in here. We're going to look at what that does to my menu. So now if I'm here in physical inventory and I want to update, what I see here is prepare PI, not update PI, prepare PI. So that prepares it, zips it, and gets it ready to poll back to the main. That's what it does. So I can't accept the numbers, which is a choice, right? I mean, if you've got good people in the field and you've got a regional person that's on site and you're dotting your I's, you're crossing your T's, you have good confidence in the count, then don't do this, right? Let's just let them update it. How does that affect the whole process if I have remote stores? What does that do for me? So let's just take a quick peek at that. So if I'm a main, right, and I've got a remote store, right? Now, if they create a count sheet, boom, they created a count sheet, and they updated, what happens? Well, it creates a whole series of adjustment documents, right? That's what it does. All these adjustments get created, and then these adjustments here get bundled and sent back to the main in polling, and they affect the on-hand quantity at the main, and they file themselves into history, and I can see these adjustments in history just fine, right? That works, right? So what if I instead say, no, I'm going to make you bundle this and send this into me? Well, then I get the count sheet, I review it, I check the discrepancies, I look it over. If I don't believe it, I call them up and say, really? Do you have 900,000, 860,000 of these items? And they check it and they go, oh, crap, we made a mistake. That should be 3. I think we scanned an item number over the top of that, whatever. I fix it, right? Because I'm now in control of their count sheet. I make corrections to it. I update it. When I update it, it creates adjustment memos and it changes the quantity on hand in inventory. So inventory gets modified, right? Either way, inventory gets modified. The point is that these adjustments get pulled back down to them, and the changes in inventory get pulled back down to them. So at the end of the day, both sides see the same thing. The only difference really is one of control, obviously, and one of the count sheet itself. So if I like having the count sheet at the main, if I like being able to go in and look at the count sheet and say, hey, what did you have last year when you counted that? Then I should send the count sheet in. Now, that being said, in the world that we live in today, certainly remote access is a normal function, and every retailer should have remote access to all their computers. Log me in, team viewer, go to my PC. There's just a whole bunch of stuff, right? There's all kinds of platforms out there that let us have remote access. Definitely get a professional package. It's worth a few bucks a month or slash year, but are mostly subscription now. But if you have a good service that basically takes on the security role, that's why you're paying them. You're not paying them to have remote access. You could load VNC for free, but VNC is easily hacked. So you're paying them for the security, right? That's what you're paying them for, and it's worth it. So get a good remote access software. You can just dial right in and look at their count sheet, even if the count sheet only exists at the remote store, right? So mostly it's about control, whether you want to see the count before you accept it, right? That's really what it comes down to. All right, that being said, we're going to go turn that off. So let's back out of here again and go turn that off. And how we doing? I don't see any questions. I don't see any hands. I see our attendees are going up and down. We've lost another one. They probably fell asleep and their head hit the keyboard and probably disconnected, right? Okay, so let's go back to system preferences. Let's go to merchandise, PI tool, options, and deselect that. Let's go back here to physical inventory and let's go to physical inventory stores and let's select update my PI. Let's check off our store here. And let's say that the reason code is physical, and let's say update, and it's going to go do an update now. Boom, an update was done. Okay, so now let's back out of here and let's go take a look at that update. So if I go to merchandise adjustment memos, I should be able to see what it did right here. So there is a transaction on that store, a quantity transaction, reason code physical, source physical, right? And so if we go to form view on that, we can see an adjustment of every item that has been made here, right? So we can see exactly the cost, $180,000. It's fake inventory anyway. So the total number of pieces, right? Okay, now once the physical inventory is done, I would say we need to move back into the land of reporting. Now in the BHD reports, up here at the top, I put in a bunch of reports. If you have our custom reports, there's some very nice reports that'll analyze or assist in analyzing this. Okay, so let's try this one here. We'll run this for, that's a good period of time. I'm okay with that period of time. Reason code, I did not default the reason code because everybody seems to use a different one, so I'm going to say use that reason code, and that includes today, right? So I'm going to click OK, and we're going to fire this off and see what it does. Hopefully now, there is like a large number of items on that one memo, but it shouldn't take too long. Anyway, what this is going to do is it's going to rank the top 10 shrinkage departments. So if we can get it to go, that is, it's important to know where you're losing stuff. Now, that being said, it's important to not create fictional shrinkage, right? Mistakes. So if you know that something is missing and you know why it's missing, you should then make an adjustment memo and you should give that to accounting, and accounting should then post that into business. And so when you count, what you're looking for is the real shrinkage, right? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the unexplained shrinkage, right? And that's the definition of shrink, right? The word shrink means the difference between what the book value says and what you actually have that's normally not explained, right? So if we then bring this up a little bit so we can all see it, because I can't see it. All right, so you see here, what I'm doing here is I'm doing a rank by department, showing you the difference in cost and the difference in pieces. It's ranked by cost, obviously, not by pieces. So so it's just ranking all these, and these are fake departments that I've created, in this is a sandbox, this is junk data, this is not real, right? But I'd like to know my top 10 departments where I lost my stuff, and I'd like to go investigate those departments and find out why they're bad, right? The other reports I have here, are you sure you want to close report? Yes. I have the same thing, except I have it breaking out top 10 by store. So if you have 5 stores, it'll give you the top 10 for each of the 5 stores. You could then compare that to the company's top 10, right? And see how they rate. I've got the same thing alphabetically and ranked. So if you'd rather see the departments alphabetical, I got all the departments alphabetical and I got all the departments ranked. The ranked view is neat. I don't know if I want to wait for another report, but it starts negative and then it hits 0 and then it goes positive, right? At the bottom of that rank, you're going to have things where overage was found, right? We also did the same thing by vendor, and we also did the top 10 by vendor, and then we also did the style level, description 1, and the item level. So if I have a department and I want to go deeper, then I would need to go to the item or style level, depending on whether it's a garment or it's hard lines, right? Do I want to see, the polo shirt? I don't know if I care about the red small. I care more about the overall polo shirt. So I would be at the style level. If that makes sense. So those are important reports. On a more regular basis, I thought we had right here BHD adjustments. There's a normal report that I'm not seeing in my list. Oh, there it is right there. Right. So quantity changes by store. So a minute ago I said if you have like a situation, like if I saw somebody grab some items and run out the store, and I'm not going to chase them down, but I know they took 3 jackets and I know which jackets they took, I would mark those out of stock as known theft, and then I would hand that over to accounting. Now, how I would hand that over is I would hand that over, and I'll just run this here for, what should I run this for? I'll say 180 days, 179 days ago. Hopefully this doesn't take a month to run. This one runs much, much faster. Excellent. So let's zoom on this a little bit because I can't see it. Right, so as this thing takes each store by each reason code and breaks down the transactions within, so transaction 205 and 215, right? and then shows the total dollar amount by reason code. So if you had known theft and you had damaged product and you had some promotions and you had store use, well, store use is an expense to accounting, but damage and theft are write-offs. You follow, and they may be different kinds of write-offs. So this report communicates very quickly to accounting what they should write off and how they should write it off, right? And then they can write it off how they choose. They could post these by transaction or by total. I don't care. But I would run this at the end of each month and make sure that we're accounting for the known shrinkage on a regular basis. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't count it as shrinkage. I would count it as shrinkage. But there's a difference between unknown and known shrinkage, if you see where I'm going. At least there is when I was in retail. Anyway, so that's roughly the whole process, start to finish. We have scanners you can rent. The Foundry Logic scanners are very nice. I highly recommend them. The Foundry Logic scanners come in a couple of different ways. In fact, let me just see if I can show you. The newest scanner that we're using is the TC, or is it TC20 Zebra? Oh yeah, so let me just pull this over where we can all see it, right? So this is just, I just did a quick search and it's bringing up all kinds of pictures, but this device right here, that's the TC20K. The one with the keyboard is the one with it has a K on it, and the one without the keyboard is just the regular TC20. They also come with, where is it? They come with a little handle. That's not the device though, but they do have a handle mount, like kind of like that you can slide the into a little cradle. And I'm not sure the keyboard version mounts to the handle, but there's different configurations for this. And this TC20 is a works with Foundry Logic. So Foundry Logic is an excellent platform. They've been a partner of Retail Pro for, gosh, years really, and they really have a nice platform. Right, Foundry Lens, these are the guys right here. Now, they also have the ability to, so that TC20, that's a physical inventory scanner. That's a warehouse device. That's a scanner device, right? That's not a point of sale device, right? So for a point of sale, it's a different animal. You get like you go buy a cheap iPod, which are kind of hard to get anymore, but you can order them online. And you don't need much memory. The 8 gigabyte one is probably enough. Get 16 if you feel crazy. Don't get the 128, right? And basically you buy a sled and you slide it into the sled. The sled then has the scanner, the encrypted chip reader, all that kind of stuff, right? That's what the sled does for you. And then they have 2 different apps you can download in the app stores, both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. You can download their applications to load onto your devices. So and then in that scenario, you could download the physical inventory tool and use them as physical inventory scanners, and you could also download the point of sale, the mobile point of sales app, and you could use it as a little register and charge people's credit cards right there in the field. So you got to think about the big picture. A lot of our clients just don't have a good use for mobile point of sale, and they just go with a more robust scanner like the TC20, or like some of the other ones like this one here. This is that was a really robust Dolphin 6100. Those have been discontinued though, and that's really a big handle wise. That's a big device. I like the TC20. It's big enough to get where your hand wraps around it, but it's not so big that you feel like you're gonna kill somebody with it or bump somebody with it. But I got to admit, the warehouse type scanners are definitely shock tested. They're stronger devices. You know, it's pretty easy to break an iPod. The sleds that they come in are also shock tested though. The sleds are very nice. They protect the unit very well, but you can slide it out, and if you slide it out and drop it, you're still in the same boat, right? So anyway, are there anybody have any questions? is there any comments anybody wants to make? Does anybody have anything follow-up wise we should be, looking at as far as that goes? All right, so I guess I'm going to say thank you very much for attending our webinar then. If you don't have any questions or anything that I can follow up on or go back over, certainly at the Big Hairy Dog, we try and do regular webinars. Please join us for another one. I think there's some pretty cool things we do out there. We try to do our best. We're always a work in progress. And most of all, I guess in closing, I'm going to say stay safe and stay healthy right now. We all are very worried, and we want all of our clients to be healthy and in business for a long time. So thanks again for joining us today. You guys have a great rest of your day. All right, bye-bye.